In my past life, I was the envied wife of a high-ranking military commander. However, my husband, Meng Shuren, sustained injuries to both his vocal cords and groin on the battlefield. This left him impotent and robbed him of his ability to speak. Consequently, Meng Shuren and I endured a 40-year sexless marriage. I never complained, living as a widow in all but name, and spent half my life with a mute man. On my 60th birthday, I stumbled upon over 500 phone cards in his study. They were all made to a star performer in the military troop, the object of his unrequited love. It turns out he wasn't incapable of speech, he simply chose not to speak to me. He's not incapable of being a man, he just doesn't want to be mine. The devastating blow left me to meet my end with bitter resentment. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in 1984. In this life, I will never suffer for any man again. The 1980s were a fertile ground for entrepreneurship. Riding the wave of reform and opening up, I'm heading to Shenzhen to make my mark. 1. The Shenzhen Special Economic Zone was established in August 1980 and had only been developing for 4 years at that point. Getting there from my hometown is a real hassle. In those days, of course, there were no planes or high-speed trains. You had to take the old-fashioned green trains. Not only did you have to change trains 3 times along the way, but the soonest departure wasn't until Sunday. I circled the date on my calendar with a red pen. In 5 days, I'll be leaving this remote, isolated mountain village. I borrowed the Women's Association director's bicycle and rode all afternoon, finally making it to the station just before sunset to buy my ticket. But when I turned around, I saw Meng Shuren, who had just stepped off the bus, right there at the station exit. I had been reborn, and he was 40 years younger, tall and straight-backed, with sharp, sword-like eyebrows and piercing starry eyes. He cut a dashing and heroic figure. He was the youngest regimental commander in the army. His future was boundless. He was also the man I loved for decades in my past life. I had foolishly convinced myself that as long as our names were on the same marriage certificate, we would be a family. Even though he couldn't speak, couldn't be intimate, and couldn't give me a child, I harbored no resentment. Instead, I devoted my entire life's love and passion to caring for him and bringing him warmth. In the end, I turned my whole life into a laughingstock. Upon seeing me, Meng Shuren furrowed his handsome brows. He spoke up, sounding a bit displeased. "Yi Tan, didn't I tell you not to come meet me at the station?" It was only then that I remembered. Today was the day Meng Shuren was returning home on leave from the army. In my past life, around this time, I had sent him a telegram. I told him we'd been engaged for 3 years, and in the countryside, a woman is considered an old maid by the age of 20, so I told Meng Shuren I wanted to get married and become a military dependent. In the military, once an officer reaches a certain rank, they can have their spouse and children join them. They can also help military families with employment and schooling, for a couple long separated by distance. This was the most eagerly awaited event. Meng Shuren was promoted to regimental commander last year, which qualified him to have his family join him with the army. I've been hoping all along that he would come and take me with him, but he has consistently refused. I got so worked up that I sent a telegram saying if he didn't come to pick me up, I'd take my luggage and go find him at the army base. Meng Shuren had no choice but to come back, albeit reluctantly, and he specifically told me not to meet him at the station. I knew he was deliberately being cold and distant with me. In my past life, I was deeply saddened. I feel that since we're engaged, even without the marriage certificate or consummating the marriage, in the countryside, we're already considered husband and wife. I want to be with Meng Shuren. I'm looking forward to getting our marriage certificate soon so I can go to the army base and take care of his daily needs. I also want to have his children, but in this lifetime. I've already given up on the idea of being a military wife. I was so focused on going to Shenzhen to chase my dreams that I completely forgot about Meng Shuren coming back. I'm here to buy a ticket to Shenzhen, not to pick him up at all. Meng Shuren had misunderstood, and his handsome face was etched with impatience. "Are you really in that much of a hurry? We're still young. There's no need to rush into marriage. Life in the military is tough. Being an army spouse isn't about living in comfort. If you come, you'll only be a distraction. I still want to keep moving forward in my career." Meng Shuren immediately voiced his reasons for not wanting me to enlist. "I'm not here to pick you up. I also think it's too soon to get married, so I've decided against joining the army." My words left Meng Shuren visibly stunned, but it was immediately followed by a mocking laugh. "Yi Tan, when did you learn the art of strategic retreat?" Meng Shuren was convinced I was madly in love with him and simply refused to believe I had given up on the idea of following the army. I didn't feel like explaining anything. In any case, I'm off to Shenzhen in 5 days, from then on, a world apart, free and unburdened, too. It's over 40 li from the city to the village. I borrowed the women's committee director's bicycle to get here. On the way back, Meng Shuren pedaled with me on the back. Naturally, he was faster than I had been. But it still took over 2 hours to get back to the village. He didn't say a single word to me the entire way. The journey was filled with an awkward silence. It reminded me of the 40 years of my previous life after marriage, a loneliness as profound as being mute. It was already past 8 in the evening by the time we reached the village. The villagers were frugal and reluctant to turn on their lights at night, leaving the whole settlement in pitch darkness. Our arrival in the village set off a chorus of barking dogs. My mother passed away long ago, and my father died 10 years ago while saving Meng Shuren. I've been living with the Meng family all these years. Uncle and Auntie Meng are wonderful people. They've always treated me like a daughter-in-law and doted on me. Seeing us come in, Auntie Meng started chattering at Meng Shuren while reheating food by the stove. Son, it's the right call to take your wife with you to the army base. Being together every day means we can hold our chubby grandson sooner. Meng Shuren pressed his lips tightly together and said nothing. He's a man of very firm convictions. In his past life, because he couldn't marry the woman he truly loved, he chose to remain childless his entire life, letting the Meng family line die out with him. Uncle Meng and Aunt Meng both passed away with deep regret. Be good to Yezi. The Yi family has done you a great kindness. If Uncle Yi hadn't saved your life back then, you wouldn't even be alive, let alone a regiment commander. Uncle Meng noticed his son's impatience and hurriedly added his final piece of advice. All right. I've already said I'll marry her. Will you all just stop pressuring me? I'm grateful that Uncle Yi saved me, but it was just an accident. I'd rather have died than owe such a huge debt of gratitude. Let me spend the rest of my life repaying it. 10 years ago, my father was the captain of the village militia. That year, a flash flood occurred, and Meng Shuren was swept into the mountain stream. My father jumped into the water and desperately pulled Meng Shuren to safety, but he himself perished from exhaustion. I became an orphan and have lived with the Meng family ever since. Child, from now on, you are our Meng family's own daughter, Shuren's future wife. That promise ruined my entire life. Meng Shuren married me because of that promise. Yet he felt morally coerced into it. He resented me for hijacking his life and ruining his chance at love, so even after 40 years of marriage, he refused to touch me and couldn't be bothered to speak to me. What kind of attitude is that? Are you even speaking like a human being? You think just because you're a regimental commander now, I won't dare to teach you a lesson, you little brat, even if you become a general. I'm still your father. Uncle Meng fumed, his beard bristling with anger. Afraid I'd be upset, he grabbed a rolling pin and was about to hit Meng Shuren. Uncle, he's tired, let's eat first. I interjected to defuse the situation. I'll be gone in a few days anyway. I just want some peace and quiet, not a scene. I also know that the more Uncle Meng loses his temper, the more Meng Shuren will despise me. A stubborn man like him can't be beaten into submission. My dear girl. Aunt Meng took my hand and whispered some advice. A man needs to be kept in line. Don't be too easy on him. What a wonderful mother-in-law. But I guess we were never meant to be mother-in-law and daughter-in-law in this lifetime. We had just sat down at the dinner table, not even picking up our chopsticks, when the village loudspeaker crackled to life with the booming voice of the village chief. Shuren, the army just called. They say it's urgent. Let me repeat. Shuren, hearing the announcement, Meng Shuren shot to his feet. I have to get back to my unit. He picked up his backpack and left without so much as a backward glance. It was a perfect replay of the scene from my past life. He barely had a chance to sit down at home before Chi Rongrong called him away. Chi Rongrong was a performer in the army's cultural troupe. She was beautiful, talented in singing and dancing, and could even recite poetry. She was Meng Shuren's one true love, his unattainable ideal. Back in that past life, the term unattainable ideal wasn't in vogue yet. But all it took was a single word from Chi Rongrong, and Meng Shuren would have moved heaven and earth for her. After Meng Shuren left in that past life, Uncle and Aunt Meng sent me to the army. They even arranged for a division commander to officiate our wedding. Meng Shuren finally gave in to the pressure and agreed to marry me, allowing me to join him as a military spouse. But on our wedding night, he was called away by a phone call from Chi Rongrong. He said he had to go on a mission. When he returned, his vocal cords and groin were both injured. I remained a virgin for the rest of my life. For the next 40 years, I could only communicate with my husband through writing and hand gestures. I swallowed my tears and devoted myself wholeheartedly to tending to his every need. I waited on his parents. What a fool I was. It never occurred to me that if he were truly mute, how could he have risen from regiment commander to senior officer in the military? He would have been discharged on medical grounds long ago. In the army, he could communicate perfectly well with others and issue orders. He just couldn't be bothered to talk to me at home. I've always been a proper and dutiful person, never prying into his military affairs or colleagues. That's precisely why I was kept in the dark for decades. It wasn't until my 60th birthday, while cleaning his study, that I discovered a box containing over 500 phone cards. They were all those special IC cards for making international calls, because Chi Rongrong later married abroad, went through 2 divorces, and didn't have an easy life. Meng Shuren felt he had failed his first love, so he spent 40 years trying to make it up to her with unwavering tenderness. He bought the house and car for Chi Rongrong overseas. He refused to have children with me, yet he treated Chi Rongrong's 3 children from her previous marriages as his own. He covered all the tuition and living expenses for those 3 children, even at their wedding. It was Meng Shuren who attended as the representative of the bride's family. I was completely kept in the dark about all of this. I never asked him where the money went. My 100% trust was repaid with the coldest, most heartless betrayal. After learning the truth, my entire world shattered. In despair, I fell from that balcony, so I get to live again. I'm done with a man whose heart I can't warm. 3. With 4 days left before my trip to Shenzhen, I started packing my things. Being an orphan meant a lonely life, but the silver lining was having no ties. I could pick up and leave at a moment's notice. A few changes of clothes were packed into the travel bag. I sewed a hidden pocket into my undergarment, where I kept my ID card and 300 yuan. That was the entirety of my savings. In 1984, a city worker's monthly wage was barely over 30 yuan. 300 yuan was an absolute fortune. It was the compensation money I received after my father's sacrifice. I had saved it for 10 years without touching a single cent. In my previous life, when I married Meng Shuren, I used that money to buy him a Shanghai brand wristwatch. I also bought a sewing machine and a brand new Forever brand bicycle, and took them all with me when I followed him to the army base. But I never once saw him wear that watch. I'm certainly not going to waste my affection where it's not wanted ever again. This 300 yuan is my seed money for starting a business in Shenzhen. Seeing me pack my bags, Uncle Meng and Aunt Meng thought I was going to join the army as a dependent, and they were both delighted. They wanted to see me off, but I refused. Aunt Meng then gave me another 500 yuan, calling it the Meng family's betrothal gift, which I repeatedly declined. Auntie Meng wouldn't take no for an answer. She insisted I have it. In the end, I had no choice but to accept. My father gave his life for the Meng family, so I can take this money with a clear conscience. 3 days before leaving for Shenzhen, I went to my parents' gravesite to say goodbye. Mom, Dad, I'm going to Shenzhen to join the great national endeavor of reform and opening up. Waiting for my daughter to come home. Don't worry, I'll still be happy even without Meng Shuren. When Sunday arrived, I said goodbye to Uncle Meng and Auntie Meng, leaving the mountain village I'd called home for over 20 years. The old green train chugged and rumbled its way toward Shenzhen. It was over 1,000 kilometers to Shenzhen. It takes 3 days and 2 nights with 3 transfers. I don't know if it's a coincidence or fate. The city where the first transfer takes place is where Meng Shuren's troops are stationed. There is a 3-hour gap between transfers. I never thought about using this gap to say goodbye to Meng Shuren. It wasn't necessary, and he wouldn't have cared anyway. I was just having noodles at the state-run guest house outside the station when, wouldn't you know it, I ran into Meng Shuren again and also spotted Chi Rongrong. In the early 1980s, people's clothes in China came in only 2 colors: army green and light gray. Chi Rongrong was wearing a pale yellow dress, which made her stand out in the crowd. The 2 of them were also eating here. A large bag sat beside Chi Rongrong. It contained performance costumes, suggesting the cultural troupe was heading out for a show. Meng Shuren was there to see her off at the station. My eyes met Meng Shuren's across the space between us. I didn't want to speak, intending to pretend I didn't know him. But after his face flushed slightly with a hint of embarrassment, it quickly regained its expression of utter superiority. He strode right up to me. Yi Tan, you're getting more and more willful. I didn't come to pick you up. Who told you to come to the base on your own? Do you think joining the army family is child's play? There's a ton of paperwork involved. You're just making things harder for me. Ever since he was a child, Meng Shuren has been an exceptional person in the military. He was a key candidate for grooming, and I've always seen him as my idol. He's so confident it borders on narcissism. Meng Shuren, I'm just passing by. I'm not here for you. Ha ha ha. Meng Shuren let out a deeply mocking laugh. Yi Tan, when did you learn to lie like this? There's not a single word of truth coming out of your mouth. Just the other day you said you wouldn't marry me, and now you've chased me all the way to the military base. I've told you countless times. I'm building my career right now, and I don't need you holding me back. He was about to say more when Chi Rongrong spoke up in her soft, delicate voice. Regiment Commander Meng, why don't you step outside and cool off for a moment? Let me talk to Sister Yezi. Sister Yezi has come a long way to seek refuge with you. We shouldn't make her feel unwelcome. Meng Shuren gave a dismissive snort and left the guest house. Chi Rongrong moved closer to me, the smile vanishing from her face. She then whispered a provocation, her voice low enough for only the two of us to hear. What makes a country bumpkin like you think a regimental commander would marry you? Chasing after him all the way to the army base. You really have no shame. You just used your father's life to threaten Shuren into marrying you, didn't you? Ha, a country hick's life is cheap, serves him right for dying. She was about to say more. Slap. I had already slapped Chi Rongrong hard across the face. I had waited 2 whole lifetimes to land this slap, so I put every ounce of my strength into it. 5 distinct finger marks appeared on Chi Rongrong's pale, delicate face. In my previous life, after I arrived at the army, Chi Rongrong had said almost the exact same thing. I was furious, but I held back from hitting her, afraid Meng Shuren would think I was a shrew. But then, Chi Rongrong deliberately fell down and falsely accused me of hitting her, so this time, I really did slap her, that way. She wouldn't have to put on that phony act. A look of stunned disbelief flashed across Chi Rongrong's face. She clearly hadn't expected me to actually dare to hit her, but that shock was quickly replaced by glee. Clutching her cheek, she wailed, Captain, she hit me. Hearing the commotion, Meng Shuren rushed in immediately. Yi Tan, you've gone too far this time, he shouted. Apologize. Chi Rongrong covered her face, a flash of triumph in her eyes. In my past life, I was forced to apologize. I tearfully explained that Chi Rongrong had provoked me first, and that I hadn't laid a hand on her, but Meng Shuren simply wouldn't listen. He refused to believe that Chi Rongrong could say something so vicious. Rongrong reads poetry, Shelley, Goethe, Pushkin. I simply don't believe she could be so cruel. I certainly don't owe anyone an explanation for the rest of my life. I couldn't stomach another bite, so I got up and left. This was the first time in all these years I had defied Meng Shuren. He was already in a towering rage. If you won't apologize, then get the hell out of here. I won't marry a shrew like you. I stopped in my tracks and turned my head. Meng Shuren, don't worry, you won't be seeing me again. A sudden panic gripped him. What do you mean? It means exactly what you think. Luckily, we were only engaged and never officially married, so our engagement is off. From now on, you and I are nothing to each other. Don't feel burdened. Even though my father gave his life to save you, you have no obligation to marry me. Just as you said, it was merely an accident. My father is a good man. He'd save anyone who fell into the river. He didn't mean to force you into marrying me. His daughter isn't that hopeless. She doesn't need to resort to such tricks to get married. Hearing this, an expression of embarrassment and shame appeared on Meng Shuren's face. I didn't mean it like that. I'm very grateful to Uncle Meng. There's no need for thanks. He's passed away, so these words are meaningless now. I turned and walked into the station. Meng Shuren thought he had convinced me to agree to return to the village. He let out a long sigh of relief and then hurried to catch up. I'll walk you back to the village. Just give me a few more days to think about joining the army. Even now, Meng Shuren still doesn't believe I'm really breaking up with him. I can't be bothered to explain anymore. Crash. Chi Rongrong deliberately knocked over the table, spilling the bowl of noodles I'd just taken a bite of all over her. Meng Shuren stopped in his tracks, turning back to tend to his beloved. Call me when you get home. He fished out a 100 yuan note, shoved it into my hand, then turned and hurried back. I strode into the station, telling myself not to cry, yet tears streamed down my cheeks of their own accord. Farewell, Meng Shuren. From this moment on, you are wiped from my life. From now on. Across mountains and rivers, my joys and sorrows are no longer your concern. 5. After 3 days and 2 nights on a lurching train, I finally arrived in Shenzhen. In my past life, I had visited Shenzhen a few times, but by that time, Shenzhen was already a peer of Beijing. Shanghai, and Guangzhou, a top-tier, internationally renowned, and bustling metropolis, but over 40 years ago, Shenzhen was just a small fishing village at the start of its journey. 1984 was a time when Shenzhen was at its most vibrant, poised to accelerate onto the fast track of rapid development. After my rebirth, I chose to come to Shenzhen to strive because it's a paradise for entrepreneurship and chasing dreams. I walk the streets of Shenzhen. The streetscape at this moment is still quite humble, with few towering skyscrapers in sight and no parade of luxury cars on the roads, yet, the streets are bustling with crowds, and you can hear the distinct accents and dialects from all across the country. These are all young people who have come to Shenzhen in pursuit of their dreams. Decades from now, many of these very individuals will become household names, renowned entrepreneurs and billionaires. I was fortunate to become one of them. With the advantage of rebirth, I'm confident I'll succeed. That's the only way to live up to this second chance I've been given. I already have a plan for what to do in Shenzhen, although there are many factories here at the moment, state-owned, joint ventures, and foreign-funded, but I never considered working in a factory. I only have a junior high school education. Even if I were reborn, I wouldn't suddenly become a research genius. I can't create high-tech stuff like computers, phones, or chips. Besides, my capital is limited. I only have 1,000 yuan. I can only pursue businesses with low barriers to entry, minimal investment, but that still turn a profit. The service industry, to be more specific, it's the food and beverage business. Although this era has opened up, allowing people to start their own businesses, we call individual business owners getihu. However, due to prevailing mindsets, the vast majority of society still viewed being a self-employed individual as not a proper career path, and even somewhat shameful. The best prospects were still joining the military or getting a factory job. Ideally, one would get into a state-owned factory. This was known as the Iron Rice Bowl. As a result, private and individual economic activity was minimal. As you walk down the street, aside from state-owned restaurants, post offices, supply and marketing cooperatives, and food stores, there are virtually no other shops in sight. Take the dining establishments, for instance. The servers in state-run restaurants are all permanent, tenured employees. Consequently, notions like the customer is king or service with a smile are entirely absent. The servers are all incredibly arrogant and full of themselves. The service is genuinely unwelcoming, with staff who are rude and unhelpful. That's why many people, even those who can afford it, are reluctant to dine at these state-run restaurants. It's all too easy to leave not just unsatisfied with the meal, but also thoroughly annoyed. So, I've decided to start my entrepreneurial journey by opening a small snack shop. The location chosen was the Shiko Industrial Zone in Shenzhen. I've counted, and there are already over 100 factories here, with a combined workforce of 50 to 60,000 people. Most of them are from out of town, largely single, and don't have the means to cook for themselves. Compared to the inland regions, the workers here earn a higher income. Some workers could even earn 200 yuan a month. Although many factories had canteens, people naturally wanted to improve their standard of living once they had a bit of money to have a decent meal. So the food service industry was an absolute necessity. What's more, I have a unique advantage. In my past life, after joining the army, I worked in the logistics department, specifically in charge of the mess hall. The soldiers came from all corners of the country, each with their own culinary preferences, and because there was no warmth at home, I didn't even have anyone to talk to. So my only passion is cooking, specifically, exploring the regional cuisines, signature dishes, and local specialties from all over the country: Shandong cuisine, Sichuan cuisine, Cantonese cuisine, Fujian cuisine, Jiangsu cuisine, Zhejiang cuisine, Hunan cuisine, Anhui cuisine. There's nothing I can't make. I'm particularly skilled at hot pot, barbecue, and all kinds of noodles and dumplings. I could even handle Western dishes and desserts. Rent was cheap in those days. I spent 150 yuan to rent a storefront on the street, and used the rest of the money to buy pots, pans, utensils, and ingredients. Yezi restaurant was officially open for business. 6. The 1980s was an era of supply falling short of demand. If you had the guts and were willing to work hard, making money was a sure thing. My restaurant was packed from day one because we could cook signature dishes from all over the country. Many migrant workers in Shenzhen came to my place to eat, saying they could taste the flavors of home. I couldn't handle the workload alone, so I hired 2 waitstaff. The three of us were spinning like tops all month. It was exhausting, but when I ran the numbers, after deducting rent and the staff's wages, I was left with a net profit of 2,000 yuan in 1984. What did 2,000 yuan even mean? That's 2 years' income for a working-class family. That's 5 years' income for a farmer. I cried looking at the ledger. They were tears of joy. A woman doesn't need a man, because men will betray you and hurt you, but money never will. 7. Half a year has already flown by since I arrived in Shenzhen. The restaurant business is getting better and better. My savings have reached 10,000 yuan, making me a bona fide 10,000 yuan household. In the 1980s, that was a truly enviable title to have. It was more impressive than being a millionaire in later times. My restaurant has grown significantly. I started with 1 storefront, and now I'm renting 3. I now have a team of 6 employees. I'm not a stingy boss. I'm very generous with my staff. They were paid well above the average, with additional bonuses on top. As a result, every single one of them was highly motivated. I was busy working in the restaurant that day when I suddenly heard a voice full of surprise. Yezi. I turned my head and couldn't believe it. I'd run into someone from my hometown. It was Liu, the village accountant. He was in Shenzhen on business and happened to walk into my restaurant for lunch. Of course, I was thrilled to see a familiar face from back home. Not only did they add several substantial dishes, but they also comped the entire meal. Accountant Liu didn't touch his food. His face etched with urgency. Yezi, what are you doing here? You have no idea. For the past 6 months, the Meng family has been turning the place upside down looking for you. Commander Meng is going out of his mind. 6 months ago, I boarded the train to Shenzhen. The Meng family and everyone in the village thought I was going to join the army camp to get my marriage certificate with Meng Shuren. Later, when I changed trains midway, I ran into Meng Shuren and Qi Rongrong. He thought the same thing. He sent me away again. He thought I'd gone back to the village. No one knew I had come to Shenzhen. This created a classic case of crossed wires, a two-way misunderstanding. The villagers thought I was with the army, while Meng Shuren believed I was back home. The first few days were uneventful. It wasn't until a few days later, when Meng Shuren hadn't received my check-in call, that he phoned the village to ask. That's when they realized I never made it back. I had simply vanished into thin air. Everyone was frantic. Meng Shuren took time off work and searched everywhere for me. I didn't have a cell phone. Back in those days, there was no surveillance, and train tickets weren't registered to your name. Where could they even begin to look? Meng Shuren searched for a full 2 months but came up empty-handed. The local police station was at a loss too. So everyone thought something terrible had happened to me. They were convinced I'd been killed on the road. Auntie Meng cried at home every single day. Uncle Meng hit Meng Shuren so hard with a rolling pin that he broke his arm. He called him an ungrateful wretch and accused him of causing my death. Everyone back in the village felt sorry for me, saying I was pitiful. So, when Accountant Liu suddenly saw me running a restaurant in Shenzhen, full of life and energy, he was utterly shocked. Yezi, come back with me. Everyone's waiting for you. I shook my head. I'm not going back. I'm doing just fine here in Shenzhen. Uncle Liu, could you please tell Uncle Meng and Auntie Meng for me that I'm doing well and they shouldn't worry? Accountant Liu slapped his thigh in frustration. Why are you so stubborn, girl? What about Regimental Commander Meng? So, no wedding? No. I shook my head firmly. I've been done with him for a long time. 9. After Accountant Liu left, I kept busy at the restaurant. The biggest inconvenience of this era, aside from the lack of mobile networks, is the inability to make online payments. Every transaction has to be done in cash. Every night after closing, I have to carefully tally up the cash received. The next day at noon, I go to the bank to deposit it. I didn't dare keep too much cash on me, for fear of attracting unwanted attention. But with my restaurant doing such good business, it was impossible not to draw notice. It was raining that night, and the sky outside was unusually dark. I had rented a small, single-story house in the alley behind the restaurant. Just as I was about to lock up the restaurant and head home to rest, a tremendous force shoved me hard from behind, pushing me back inside the building. A thuggish-looking man swaggered into the room with a menacing grin. He was here to rob the place. Shenzhen is packed with people, some genuinely here to build a business and make an honest living, others just looking to make a quick buck through shady schemes. He didn't just come to rob the place, he had sinister intentions toward me as well. This little lady's quite a looker. The thug pinned me down on the table and was about to do the unthinkable. I sank my teeth hard into the thug's hand. He jumped up, clutching his bleeding hand and cursing furiously. "Are you a dog or something?" The thug was still trying to bully me. I rushed into the kitchen and grabbed a cleaver. "Stay back, or I'll fight you to the death." The thug wasn't intimidated, it only fueled his savagery. "Damn it, I don't believe I can't handle a little bitch like you." He charged at me again. I'd rather die than be defiled. I had made up my mind, if I couldn't avoid it, I'd end my own life. The moment was critical. "Don't move." A man in military uniform burst into the room. The uniform itself commanded an intimidating presence, sending the thugs scattering in panic. It was Mengshuren. Even with one arm in a sling, clearly not fully recovered from a fracture, he easily subdued the assailant with his other hand. Officers from the local police station came and took the person away. It turned out he was a fugitive criminal. Only after everything was settled did Mengshuren look at me with a complicated expression. "Yi Tan, you have no idea how hard I've been looking for you." 10. Mengshuren had come after hearing the news from Accountant Liu. "Come home with me. Everyone's waiting for you." I'll marry you. I've already submitted the request to the division commander about accompanying the army." "Stop this. I've had enough of the blame for the half year you've been gone." His handsome face was etched with exhaustion. "Thank goodness you're alright. I would never have forgiven myself if something had happened to you." When I heard he was willing to marry me, I felt no excitement or happiness whatsoever, because by then, it had become a matter of complete indifference to me. "Commander Meng, thank you for saving me, but you should go back. I won't marry you." I made myself perfectly clear before. Mengshuren was both embarrassed and enraged. "Yi Tan, don't push your luck. I've already given in. What more do you want? Keeping this up isn't going to do you any good. You're just jealous of Qi Rongrong, aren't you? There's nothing between us. We're just kindred spirits." I shook my head firmly. "I'm not being difficult, I just don't want to marry you. Whether you marry Qi Rongrong or someone else, it's none of my concern. If you're worried about how to explain this to Uncle and Auntie Meng when you go back, I'll write you a letter. I'll say it was my decision not to marry you, so they won't pressure you anymore." Hearing me say this, for the first time in 2 lifetimes, Mengshuren truly believed that I didn't love him anymore, that I no longer wished to be his wife. I could see it all on his face: shock, confusion, and then relief. I understood every bit of it. He's finally free of me, this huge burden. But then why do I feel this sense of loss and reluctance to let go? "Are you serious?" "I am. I've already taken out the stationery to write a letter to Uncle Meng and Aunt Meng." "Yeten, it's not that I have no feelings for you at all. It's just that everyone says I owe you. I feel pressured. The idea of marrying you felt like fulfilling an obligation. That's why I rebelled against it, why I was unwilling." He tried to explain, stumbling over his words. "Let's not talk about it anymore. None of this matters now." I handed the letter to Mengshuren. "Regiment Commander Meng, from now on, we are both free." 11. After Mengshuren left, life went on for me. Before I knew it, the year was drawing to a close, and it was time for me to head back home to pay my respects at my parents' graves. After 9 months of hard graft in Shenzhen, I'd managed to save up 30,000 yuan. Returning to the village now felt like a true homecoming in style. I was all dressed up in fine clothes. I had on a red down jacket up top and a pair of black high boots down below. This kind of outfit wasn't just rare in the inland areas, most folks had never even laid eyes on anything like it. Since Shenzhen is close to Hong Kong, the latest fashion and styles always come from there first. The trends there were years ahead of mainland cities, let alone the countryside. The whole village went wild the moment I arrived, with dozens of kids swarming around me. It was because I brought a ton of New Year treats, including a whole big bag of white rabbit milk candies. Everyone present gets a share. The kids were over the moon. After my parents passed away, many kind folks in the village helped me out and looked after me. I can't forget these kindnesses. I went door to door to hand out Lunar New Year red envelopes. Each one contained 200 yuan. That was an absolute fortune, and it caused a stir throughout the whole village again. Everyone was envious that I was making money and had made something of myself out in the world, of course. The red envelopes for Uncle Meng and Auntie Meng were separate. Each of theirs was 1,000 yuan. After all, they raised me for 10 years. Even though I couldn't become their daughter-in-law, I must never forget their kindness. Uncle Meng absolutely refused to take the red envelope, and eventually became quite agitated. "Child, I'd be ashamed to take your money. Our Meng family has wronged you." Auntie Meng began to cry. "My dear, my foolish son just wasn't blessed with that kind of luck." I could only try to comfort them. It was New Year's Eve. Uncle and Auntie Meng insisted I stay at their house for the night. Just then, 2 more people came in, bringing a gust of cold air with them. Meng Shuren had brought Qi Rongrong back for the new year. He stared at me, momentarily stunned. Qi Rongrong, meanwhile, fixed my down jacket and knee-high boots with a gaze so full of bitter envy it could have set them on fire. 12. Now that they were back, I naturally didn't want to stay at the Mengs any longer, to avoid making things awkward for everyone, but Aunt Meng absolutely refused to let me leave. Yet, she completely ignored Qi Rongrong, treating her as if she were invisible. In the end, I stayed in my old room. Aunt Meng finally spoke to Qi Rongrong. Without a proper title or status, you two cannot share a room. We don't want to become the talk of the town. That evening, Aunt Meng let Qi Rongrong stay in Meng Shuren's room. But she sent Meng Shuren off to sleep in the storage shed. There's no stove in there. It gets terribly cold in the winter. Aunt Meng didn't feel the slightest bit sorry for him. She muttered under her breath, "Freeze to death, you heartless scoundrel." That night, she slept very restlessly. In the middle of the night, Qi Rongrong needed to use the toilet but absolutely refused to go to the outhouse, saying it was filthy. In the end, Meng Shuren had no choice but to go out and borrow a chamber pot for her. Naturally, Auntie Meng was even more displeased with Qi Rongrong. "That's just how we country folk live. If you think it's dirty, you shouldn't have come. Who invited you anyway?" Qi Rongrong was fuming, tears brimming in her eyes. Meng Shuren couldn't take it anymore. "Mom, can you just stop already?" Like a little rooster with a long tail, he forgets his mother once he takes a wife. Aunt Meng pointed at Meng Shuren. "If you marry her, then don't call me your mother anymore." The commotion didn't die down until well past midnight. Early the next morning, as I was about to visit my parents' graves, I found my bright red down jacket slashed with a dozen gaping holes from a pair of scissors. 13. Don't even ask. It had to be Qi Rongrong. Jealousy has driven that woman mad. After getting an earful from Auntie Meng, she took all her frustration out on me. I'm fine, but Uncle and Auntie Meng are absolutely furious. Even Meng Shuren lost his temper with Qi Rongrong for the first time. "Rongrong, apologize. How could you do such a thing?" Then he looked at me with an apologetic expression. "Yetin, I'm so sorry. How much is the dress? I'll pay for it." I shook my head. "Forget it. It's nothing valuable." I didn't make a fuss, but Qi Rongrong started screaming hysterically. "Who do you think you are, you little country bumpkin? Stop putting on airs. What gives you the right to wear such nice clothes? You don't deserve them." "Ha, who knows where you really got that money? I've heard a lot of shameless women go south to become streetwalkers. You went down there to sell yourself, didn't you?" Smack, a sharp slap rang out, but this time, it was Meng Shuren who had struck. He pointed at Qi Rongrong. "Shut your mouth, you hit me, I hate you." Qi Rongrong ran off in tears. Meng Shuren didn't give chase, but instead looked at me with a conflicted expression. "Yi, go ahead, I'm fine. I'm off to visit the grave." I left the Meng household to pay respects at my parents' grave. I left the village that very day. I couldn't care less about any further stories involving Meng Shuren and Qi Rongrong. 14. After the start of spring, Meng Shuren came to Shenzhen again. He brought me a red down jacket, the same style as the last one. He said it was to make up for the other one. I accepted it, but he refused to leave. "Yetin, I was wrong before. The truth is, I still think you're the best. Rongrong is just too high maintenance. I was wrong before. I failed to appreciate what I had when I had it. Poetry is for occasional reading, not for living by." His eyes were filled with remorse. Meng Shuren asked cautiously, Can we still get married? Let's leave it in the past." I cut him off. He left, powerless to do otherwise. After that, he wrote to me almost every month, but I never opened a single letter. I just tossed them straight into the stove to burn. Before I knew it, it was the end of the second year, and I had already opened 3 restaurants. I had over 30 employees working under me, and my annual income had surpassed 100,000. When I returned to my hometown again, I didn't let anyone know. I just visited my parents' graves and left the same night. Because of my success, some folks from my hometown also came to Shenzhen to find work. I always do my best to help. I heard that in 87, Meng Shuren ended up marrying Qi Rongrong after all. Qi Rongrong forced his hand. Meng Shuren never wanted to get married. Later, he was drugged by Qi Rongrong. Qi Rongrong made a scene at the division headquarters, leaving Meng Shuren with no choice but to marry her. However, they frequently clashed and had a poor relationship. Qi Rongrong also didn't get along with her in-laws. In the end, the situation drove Meng Shuren to volunteer for a posting at the frontier. They lived apart for a long time and never had children. Then came the 1990s. I had become the chairman of a publicly listed company. My business portfolio expanded beyond restaurants to include tourism, film and television, and real estate. After all, I was a reborn man, so I naturally knew which industries were poised to boom. My personal wealth had surpassed 1 billion. Yet, I never married. Men are a bore. My career is my lifelong companion. The next time I heard news of Meng Shuren was in '94. He had been fired. The reason was that Chi Rongrong was clamoring to go abroad, saying there was no money to be made at home and she wanted to live the good life overseas. Meng Shuren was against it. He was already a division chief of staff by then, in charge of a considerable amount of training funds. Chi Rongrong actually had the audacity to steal the funds in a mad attempt to go abroad. She was eventually caught, and Chi Rongrong was sent to prison. Meng Shuren was also dismissed from the army for dereliction of duty. By then, Uncle Meng and Aunt Meng had already passed away, so naturally, I lost all contact with him. Another 20 years passed, and it was 2024. I was 60 years old, the same age as when I was reincarnated in my previous life. My fortune has reached 30 billion, I'm still alone. But I've engaged in many philanthropic endeavors. That day, my assistant chauffeured me to a charity awards gala. As I passed by the underground parking lot, I saw an old security guard dozing off inside. He was wearing a worn-out green uniform. Meng Shuren, long time no see. Story 2. My boyfriend hates my stepsister extremely. My stepsister was humiliated by others and died on his birthday, leaving behind only a diary filled with love and accusations. My boyfriend called her disgusting. But soon after, he framed my mother and got her imprisoned, and then he imprisoned and tortured me. He found people to humiliate me. His eyes were filled with crazy hatred. Ruoro just wanted to stay by my side. Why couldn't you tolerate her? When I woke up again, I went back to the day when he publicly humiliated my stepsister and then confessed his love to me. 1. Luo, I like you. Can you be my girlfriend? The man's confession with a bit of shyness caused a lot of teasing from the friends around. I came back to my senses and happened to meet Xian Mian's expectant gaze, but before I could react, a sound of glass breaking came from not far away, accompanied by a girl's apology with a sobbing voice. Sorry, I'll clean it up right away. Xian Mian's face changed instantly. He almost left me without thinking. He strode towards Song Ruoro, who was squatting on the ground picking up the glass, and then forcefully pulled her arm to make her stand up. His tone was almost gnashing his teeth, but there was a trace of imperceptible panic. Why the hell are you here? The always gentle and elegant Xian Mian would only lose his composure and swear like this in front of Song Ruoro. Song Ruoro's body trembled in fear. I'm working here. She paused, then took out a box of medicine from her close pocket and carefully handed it to Xian Mian. Brother, you have a bad stomach. I prepared the medicine for you in advance. Song Ruoro, aren't you being cheap? You're coming here on your own to get scolded. Xian Mian raised his hand and slapped the medicine out of Song Ruoro's hand, his tone full of disgust. Get out of here. Don't embarrass yourself here. I don't know if it was because she had been squatting for too long and her legs were numb, but Song Ruoro fell to the ground because of Xian Mian's action. Her palm landed on the glass shards, and it was bleeding profusely. She let out a soft cry of pain and then looked up at Xian Mian with red eyes. This scene was very familiar. It was so familiar that I realized almost the next second, I was reborn. In my last life, Xian Mian also showed such an extremely disgusted look towards Song Ruoro in front of me. He even told Song Ruoro to die countless times, until Song Ruoro really died on the way to give him a gift. She was lying in a dirty alley with her clothes in disarray. When sorting out the belongings left behind, Song Ruoro's mother gave Xian Mian a diary with red eyes. The diary was filled with Song Ruoro's deeply hidden love for Xian Mian, and accusations of all kinds of warnings and domineering behaviors that I carried out behind her back. So, Xian Mian believed that I had killed Song Ruoro out of jealousy. He coldly called Song Ruoro disgusting and burned the diary in front of me. But soon after, he began to take crazy revenge on me. First, he framed my mother and got her imprisoned. Then he imprisoned me and tortured me with all kinds of means. The day I died happened to be his birthday. It was also the anniversary of Song Ruoro's death. Xian Mian found people to humiliate me, his eyes full of hatred. Ruoro just wanted to stay by my side. Why couldn't you tolerate her so much? But I didn't make it easy for Xian Mian either. Before I died, I bit off one of his ears, but fortunately, I was reborn. I went back to the day when Xiamian publicly humiliated Song Ruoruo and then confessed his love to me. Everything hadn't started yet. 2. Medicine. Where did you get the money to buy such expensive medicine? Could it be that you used the same means as your mother? Xiamian sneered. He had always spoken to Song Ruoruo so harshly, so in my last life, I really thought that Xiamian truly hated his stepsister. Sure enough. Song Ruoruo's face turned pale. She looked at Xiamian helplessly and in shock, and shouted with a sobbing voice, I'm not that cheap. But this time, I noticed that Xiamian's gaze subconsciously avoided, and there was a trace of heartache in his eyes, as if he was regretting it. I sneered. No one present stopped Xiamian, because everyone knew that Xiamian hated his stepmother who had become his father's wife after being the mistress. He also hated the burden that his stepmother brought into the Xie family. That is, Song Ruoruo, but in Song Ruoruo's diary in my last life. It was me who led all of this. It was me who excluded and bullied her with all my friends in the circle, making her gradually despair. This was also one of the reasons why Xiamian hated me, so I looked at Song Ruoruo who was crying softly and walked towards her on my own initiative. I asked kindly, are you okay? I helped her up and then glared at Xiamian. Xiamian, you're going too far. Why don't you take Miss Song to put some medicine on her? Wound quickly. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. 3. Everyone knew that Xiamian and I were childhood sweethearts, and today, it was the day when Xiamian confessed his love to me in front of all our friends. It was also my birthday. He frowned subconsciously. Luo, don't be angry. I'll make her leave right away. Xiamian thought I was speaking ironically. After all, everyone thought that I really didn't like Song Ruoruo always pestering and flattering Xiamian, but she couldn't be driven away. So Xiamian softened his tone and chuckled to coax me. Today is your birthday, I won't let anyone disturb you. As he was speaking, he was about to drag Song Ruoruo out, but before I could speak, Song Ruoruo's voice suddenly rang in my ear. System, what's going on? Why is the female lead suddenly being nice to me? I was stunned and subconsciously looked at Song Ruoruo. She didn't open her mouth, probably because she was pulled painfully by Xiamian. She was lowering her head and sobbing softly, but the voice I heard was completely different from the weakness she showed. Forget it, she's just an insignificant supporting character. As long as I have that medicine, I will definitely win the male lead tonight. Song Ruoruo's tone was full of confidence. Wait a minute. So I immediately stopped Xiamian, pretending not to see his body stiffening instantly. I smiled at Song Ruoruo. Today is my birthday, can I invite you to my birthday party? Xiamian's face froze. Song Ruoruo subconsciously looked at Xiamian's reaction. She rarely went against Xiamian's will, but Song Ruoruo really wanted to succeed this time, so she quickly lowered her head and softly agreed, saying okay. I chuckled. The smile didn't reach my eyes. Rather than letting these two people do something where I didn't know, it would be better to keep them right under my nose. 4. I had booked these 2 floors of the hotel, perhaps because I didn't accept his confession immediately, or perhaps because Song Ruoruo stayed. In the following time, Xiamian kept drinking. I didn't stop him and was happy to see it happen. Song Ruoruo kept whispering beside Xiamian, advising him to drink less, but she was pushed away impatiently by Xiamian. But no one noticed that Xiamian always carefully avoided Song Ruoruo's injured hand. Even when he noticed that Song Ruoruo was about to bump into the waiter's cart, he quietly pulled her closer to him, and then he impatiently shook her off. No one noticed the strange atmosphere between the two of them. I smiled and secretly asked someone to serve more high-concentration alcohol. It was time to cut the cake. I distributed the cake to my friends, including Song Ruoruo, but when Xiamian noticed the cake that Song Ruoruo got, his face froze, and he reached out and knocked the cake over without thinking. The commotion was so loud that everyone subconsciously looked over. Xiamian subconsciously explained, she's allergic to almonds. As if realizing that his behavior was too extreme, his eyes darkened, and he calmed down. Then he sneered, she's allergic to almonds. I'm afraid that if she eats it and dies, the old man will come to me for trouble. His expression was as disgusted as ever, but I saw Song Ruoruo's eyes light up with a bit of complacency that she was determined to succeed. 5. Xiamian was drunk. He leaned on me, his tone coquettish and with a trace of small complaint. Luo, why didn't you agree to me? But before I could answer, Xiamian started self-reflecting. It must be because I'm not good enough, so Luo is hesitating. He sounded a bit aggrieved. Xiamian and I were childhood sweethearts. The always proud young master of the Xia family would only lower his head for me. And because of my words I like it, he took great pains to practice his cooking skills. He once told everyone with bright eyes that I was the girl he most wanted to marry, so everyone thought that we were the most suitable couple. I also thought so in my last life. So even though Song Ruoro often appeared beside Xiamian and me, I didn't take her seriously at all, until later Song Ruoro died. I also clearly realized that for Xiamian, wanting to marry didn't mean loving the most. And the two could even coexist. I turned my head and looked at Xiamian, who was leaning on my shoulder. He was completely different from the gloomy and vicious Xiamian in my memory who wanted me to die, so I smiled and said, "How could that be? You're very good, it's just that I have some things to deal with." My tone was casual, but Xiamian was coaxed into being happy and said that I was the best in a clingy way, but he was so drunk that he didn't even know when the person beside him had changed. "I have something urgent to deal with. I can only trouble Miss Song to send me on to the room." I noticed that Song Ruoro was following me intentionally or unintentionally, so I stopped her. I handed her the room card and spoke with an apologetic tone. Song Ruoro had originally been secretly jealous and staring at the intimate actions between me and Xiamian. When she heard these words, she was stunned for a moment, then quickly lowered her head and held back the smile at the corner of her mouth. It doesn't matter, Miss Shen can go and do your own thing, I'll just send my brother there." I could still clearly hear her conversation with that so-called system. Her tone was disdainful. "This woman is so stupid, she sent the opportunity to me herself, then don't blame me." Song Ruoro helped Xiamian leave, and I just stood there and suddenly laughed. Go ahead, after all, I also gave a big gift. 6. I went back to the room and immediately took a shower. And then threw away the clothes that had been touched by Xiamian. The ambiguous sounds in the video didn't stop. The medicine given by that so-called system was indeed somewhat effective. At first, Xiamian mistook Song Ruoro for me, but he quickly sobered up. He subconsciously pinched Song Ruoro's neck with disgust and shock, but when she shed weak and pitiful tears, he hesitated and let go of his hand, and let out a muffled groan with a flushed face. This gave Song Ruoro the opportunity to continue, so the scolding and crying gradually turned into ambiguous gasps. I glanced at it and then turned my eyes away in disgust. Later, as soon as I got up, the door was banged. The sound was urgent, as if it was accidentally bumped into. I opened the door to take a look and only saw a figure leaving in a hurry. It was as if there was some fierce beast chasing behind. I couldn't see it after it turned the corner. But that familiar figure made me widen my eyes suddenly. Before I died in my last life, I also saw someone desperately pushing everyone aside and running towards me, but I was in so much pain that I didn't see clearly who it was. At my feet lay a beautifully wrapped birthday gift. Quietly, without thinking, I chased after it and took out my phone, trying to control the trembling in my voice. "Help me stop someone." 7. The person was stopped at the gate by the bodyguards. When I arrived, he had his back to me and was fighting with the bodyguards who were stopping him. His movements were fierce, and he hardly considered whether he would get injured. "Stop." The moment that person heard my voice, he stiffened suddenly, like a fierce dog that immediately stopped all its actions after receiving the owner's command. He waited obediently and nervously. "Am I going to eat you? Why are you running so fast?" I walked forward quickly, angry and anxious. But the words I wanted to use to educate him got stuck suddenly when I saw the familiar attire. I widened my eyes. Xie Shishu, the illegitimate son of the Xie family. After being recognized by me, Xie Shishu almost instinctively lowered the brim of his hat. He turned around in a panic and confusion, and his voice faintly carried a choking plea. "Why you don't look at me, please?" So I stopped all my movements. "Why can't I look at you?" As soon as the words were spoken, Xie Shishu's overly thin back stiffened suddenly. After a long while, I heard this person speak extremely difficultly. Each word seemed to be squeezed out desperately from his chest, and it carried a gentle despair. "Ugly, I'll scare you." This time, it was my turn to be stunned. 8. I wasn't familiar with Xie Shishu, probably because he was an illegitimate son. Xie Shishu was so dull that he could be called gloomy. He had a completely different personality from the popular Xiamian. The figure in my memory who desperately tried to save me gradually faded away, and I suddenly wasn't sure if Xie Shishu was that person. After all, I had only spoken a few words to Xie Shishu, and our relationship wasn't deep, so I pursed my lips and thanked him. "Thank you for the birthday gift." Xie Shishu panicked, and even his back showed a bit of uneasiness. He lowered his head and said very softly, "And no need to thank me. I noticed that the earlobe hidden under the black broken hair instantly turned red as if it was about to bleed, but in my last life, I heard that Xie Shishu was ruthless in his methods, and several times he almost pulled Xie Mian down from the position of the heir of the Xie family, but this person always seemed to lack a bit of luck. However, at that time, I hadn't had any contact with Xie Shishu for a long time. So I stopped Xie Shishu, who was about to leave. Xie Shishu, let's cooperate. I have to make Xie Mian's life worse than death. But the Xie family is a huge entity. Businessmen pursue profit. The Xie family is that profit. I thought that Xie Shishu was capable and could disguise himself in the Xie family for so long. He probably wouldn't agree to my invitation immediately, but I didn't guess the reason why he refused me. The thin and weak teenager still didn't turn around. But the hand hanging by his side clenched and then loosened. Finally, he said in a small and aggrieved voice, "But I don't have any money left." 9. I don't have any money left. I had a dream. In the dream, the voice of a child overlapped with that of Xie Shishu, but that child was not ugly at all. On the contrary, he was very good looking. His amber eyes looked at me timidly. He said in a small and uneasy voice, "I don't have any money left. Can I still play with you?" "Of course." I heard my young self answer like this, then I playfully pinched the child's face. After pinching it red, I seriously emphasized, "But we're not just playing, we're collaborating on something big." In the end, I got myself into the hands of the kidnappers. The little boy, who was as thin and weak as a beautiful chick, desperately rubbed through the ropes that bound my hands and feet and told me to run away quickly. I pulled him to run together, but he couldn't escape. The dream ended abruptly at this point, because the door of my room was knocked heavily, accompanied by Xie Mian's hoarse voice, "Luo Luo, are you in there?" 10. Xie Mian had obviously just gotten out of Song Ruoruo's bed and then came to find me in a hurry. He asked me indirectly. Only after finding that there was nothing abnormal did he heave a sigh of relief. "I still have some things to go back and deal with first." Xie Mian spoke with an apologetic tone. He paused and then looked at me very affectionately. "But Luo Luo, I still hope you can seriously consider the matter between us." I held back my nausea and lazily replied, "Okay." After Xie Mian left, I didn't rush back but waited quietly for a while. Not long after, the door of the room next to his opened. It was Xie Mian's friend, Shui Minghui. When he saw me, Shui Minghui couldn't help clicking his tongue several times. His tone was ambiguous. "You two really had a wild time last night." I couldn't even sleep peacefully next door. Of course, he couldn't sleep peacefully. After all, I specifically arranged a room with the worst sound insulation for those two people. I sneered and frowned, pretending not to understand. "What do you mean by having a wild time? I was very tired yesterday and went straight to bed as soon as I got back to my room." Shui Minghui realized something was wrong belatedly, and his face froze. Before he could speak, I asked again, "By the way, do you know where Miss Song has gone?" "Song Ruoruo?" "Yeah." I showed an apologetic expression. "I was supposed to send Mian back to rest last night, but something came up at the company, so I asked Miss Song to take care of Mian." Later, after I finished dealing with the matter, I realized that I forgot to give Miss Song her room card. I don't know where she stayed so late last night. At this moment, Shui Minghui's face darkened so much that it seemed as if ink could drip from it. I only found out in my last life, after Song Ruoruo's death, that Shui Minghui liked Song Ruoruo. He hid it very well, just so that when Song Ruoruo was in deep trouble, he could appear in front of her as a savior. So Shui Minghui had never stopped Xie Mian from bullying Song Ruoruo. He even fanned the flames in front of Xie Mian intentionally or unintentionally, but before he could make his appearance, Song Ruoruo died. Later, under Xie Mian's deliberate guidance, Shui Minghui also believed that I had schemed to kill Song Ruoruo, so these two people joined hands to carry out the so-called revenge on me. But now, the allies from my last life were about to turn against each other. Shui Minghui left in a hurry with a gloomy face even before he could make excuses for his good brother. I curved my eyes and smiled, but when I turned around, I was suddenly stunned. Xie Shishu, 11. He was still wearing black clothes, black pants, a black duckbill cap, and even a black mask, hiding in the corner. I didn't know how long he had been there. I suddenly remembered that Xie Shishu in my impression always seemed so unremarkable. "When did you come?" I walked towards him with a casual tone. "Last night." After Xie Shishu left in a hurry with the words, "But I don't have any money left," he didn't give a definite answer. When he saw me walking over, this person instinctively wanted to step back, but he was so scared by my words. "If you dare to take a step back, I'll strip off your clothes. That he stopped in his tracks abruptly. The earlobe exposed outside was so red that it seemed as if it was about to bleed. Shishu stammered. He's not a good person. Don't agree to him. I saw Song Ruoro enter his room last night and she didn't come out all night. It was obvious who he was. When he saw me raise my eyebrows, Shishu was worried that I wouldn't believe him and said anxiously, really? I saw it with my own eyes. You saw it with your own eyes. I was stunned. You've been waiting here all night. I realized belatedly that Shishu's all-black attire wasn't because he liked to dress like this. It was because he simply didn't have time to change his clothes. My expression became complicated. Just as I was about to say something, I saw Shishu take a small half-step back. He lowered his head and said very softly, why you don't come any closer, as if afraid that I would think too much. This person raised his head again and explained to me in a hurry, I don't dislike you, I just haven't had time to change my clothes. I'll smell bad. The last half of the sentence was said very softly and embarrassingly. He was clearly half a head taller than me, but at this moment, he was as flustered and helpless as a child who had made a mistake. I suddenly thought of the dream I had. I thought of the little boy in the dream who was overly delicate in appearance but very shy, so a sentence blurted out, Shishu, can I see your face? Shishu had always been wearing a mask, and in my last life, he went abroad early. When he returned to the country, I had already been imprisoned in the dark basement by Xiamian. It seemed that I had never known what Shishu looked like, but as soon as the words were spoken, Shishu's body stiffened suddenly, even the redness on his earlobe faded away instantly, the aura around him became as silent as a stagnant pond. I remembered the conversation last night and guessed that he should have some unspeakable difficulties. Immediately, I felt a bit apologetic. Sorry, I was being rude. It's okay. Shishu gently shook his head. He slowly and stiffly raised his hand, as if he was going to take off his mask. It might be a bit ugly. I hope it won't scare you. Shishu. I stopped him and smiled with curved eyebrows. Thank you for the reminder. 12. I stopped Shishu from taking off his mask, but I kept it in mind and asked someone to investigate what had happened to Shishu. I don't know why. After meeting Shishu for the second time, the thought in my heart that Shishu is the person from my last life became stronger and stronger. Shishu's information was overly simple, but I saw a photo of Shishu when he was a child. He looked exactly the same as the boy in my dream, but I don't know why. I had no impression of this face at all, so I thought of the kidnapping in my dream again. You were kidnapped when you were a child, and later Xiamian brought you back. Xiamian. I was stunned and didn't react for a moment. Why don't I have any impression of this? You had a serious illness after you came back. At that time, you were still young, so it's normal not to remember these things. My mother rolled her eyes at me while applying a facial mask. Otherwise, why do you think our family is so close to the Xie family? It's not because their son saved your life. I thought that the son of the Xie family might really have saved my life, but that person definitely wouldn't be Xiamian. I heard that you invited Xiamian's little sister on your birthday. My mother didn't look at me, so I realized that my little tricks hadn't been hidden from her. Sure enough. The next second my mother clicked her tongue. You're still young. In the end, it's your mother who has to clean up your mess. I touched my nose guiltily and didn't dare to say anything. She didn't say much either, and she didn't ask me what had happened between Xiamian and me. She just said casually before leaving, I think a piece of land in the Xue family's hands is quite good. It's a pity that the kid from the Xie family took it first by relying on some favor. However, this thing called favor will be exhausted sooner or later, and it's not worth much. I understood. I smiled at my mother and said, I see. 13. Xiamian probably had dealt with Song Ruoro's matter. He began to be more and more attentive to me and occasionally showed a bit of eagerness. Song Ruoro didn't appear in front of me again, but unexpectedly, a few days later, she got together with Xue Minghui. Thanks to this strange mind-reading ability, I pieced together the truth that I hadn't known in my last life. Song Ruoro was a so-called task performer. The purpose of her coming to this world was to collect the love value of the male lead. She could leave once the task was completed. Unfortunately, the last time she was too eager for quick success and gave Xiamian the medicine. Not only did it not increase Xiamian's love value for her, but it also almost made Xiamian and Xue Minghui turn against each other. A woman who wasn't loved enough at present was naturally not as important as a cooperation worth hundreds of millions. In order to appease Xue Minghui and also to stimulate Xiamian, Song Ruoro agreed to Xue Minghui's pursuit, but Xue Minghui was originally a suspicious person, coupled with the fact that he got Song Ruoro so easily now, he naturally wouldn't treat Song Ruoro very well. Song Ruoro called Xie Mian many times in private, but Xie Mian hung up on her in front of me, like mother. Like daughter, Xie Mian sneered, but there was a fierce look in his eyes. I'm afraid she's long wanted to use me as a stepping stone. It's really hard for this woman to have pretended in front of me for so long. When saying these words, Xie Mian had been secretly observing my expression, but I knew that this was just an illusion that Xie Mian wanted me to see. Not long after Xue Minghui and Song Ruoro officially announced their relationship, I received an anonymous email. In the video, Song Ruoro and Xie Mian were pulling and tugging at each other. Judging from the surrounding environment, it should be the time when Song Ruoro attended the charity dinner as Xue Minghui's female companion. The person filming was at a distance, and it was impossible to hear clearly what Song Ruoro and Xie Mian were saying in the video. That person probably also realized this, so he used a voice changer to dub it for me in a serious manner. It was somewhat comical. Xie Mian pinched Song Ruoro's neck. The person dubbed, "Is it fun to use me as a stepping stone, Song Ruoro? Aren't you really afraid that I'll play with you until you die?" In fact, Xie Mian had said a lot, but I guessed it wasn't anything good, so the person who dubbed just vaguely skipped over it. Song Ruoro didn't resist either. She just tilted her head slightly and looked at Xie Mian stubbornly with her red eyes. Xie Mian fell for this. When I was imprisoned in my last life. Xie Mian recalled this delicate yet strong appearance of Song Ruoro in front of me countless times. He called me a poisonous woman and said that my love for him made him feel disgusted, but from beginning to end, it was Xie Mian who had been pursuing me. Sure enough, in the video, Xie Mian released his hand hesitantly, then he kissed her as if to vent his emotions, biting Song Ruoro's lips with red eyes. Song Ruoro tilted her head back to bear it. And a tear that was just right rolled down her cheek. Then, this kiss that was originally just for venting gradually changed its taste. Xie Mian's hand reached into Song Ruoro's dress. This probably scared the person filming. A slightly red hand flashed quickly in the shaking camera, but it soon disappeared from view, so I couldn't help but sigh. It turned out that when some people were shy, their whole bodies could turn red. The camera focused on Xie Mian and Song Ruoro again. Both of them still had some rationality left. Song Ruoro finally sobbed and explained that she had done this to ensure the cooperation between the Xie family and the Xue family could proceed. This explanation stunned Xie Mian, especially when Song Ruoro revealed the red marks on her thighs. Xie Mian completely lost control of his furious emotions. He said, "Do you think I'll believe you?" But under Song Ruoro's intentional or unintentional seduction, he completely fell apart. It was not until someone came that the two of them reluctantly separated. Then they left one after another, pretending that nothing had happened. It was at that charity dinner that Xie Mian bought an expensive pink diamond. When donating to the charity home, Xie Mian also said affectionately to the camera, "The girl I like has the kindest heart, and I also hope she will like the gift I gave her." Everyone tacitly assumed that Xie Mian was talking about me, even though I wasn't present. Many of my acquaintances sent their blessings in advance, and now, Xie Mian was holding that pink diamond and confessing his love to me. This time, he didn't ask his friends to witness it, saying that he didn't want to be disturbed by other irrelevant people, so I lowered my eyes and looked at it for a while, then curved my lips. Okay. 14. Xie Mian was overjoyed, without saying a word. He wanted to contact the two families to have a meal together. He hugged me and sighed, "I can finally enter your house legitimately, Luo Luo. Don't worry, I will definitely treat you very well." When is Aunt Shen free? I could hear the eagerness in Xie Mian's tone, and of course, I knew why he had such a reaction. First, he was afraid that his affair with Song Ruoro would be exposed, so as to avoid any potential problems. Second, he wanted to take this opportunity to make my mother agree to give up a portion of the profit. The Xie family and the Shen family had a cooperative project recently. Everything went smoothly in the early stage, but there were some problems with the profit sharing. My mother had been stubborn and didn't give in. Okay, I held back my discomfort all over my body and replied casually, "You can arrange it. If you can make my mother give in on this matter, you win." I sneered in my heart. But Xie Mian mistakenly thought that I would be on his side and was immediately overjoyed. While he went to the kitchen, I posted a status on my social media. "Thank you, my dear, for the gift. I like it very much." The attached picture was the pink diamond that Xie Mian had bought. I knew that Song Ruoro had been paying attention to all my updates. Sure enough, she was the first to send her blessings. And then a long string of wish you two a long and happy relationship followed. Until an account with a black profile picture liked my status and then quickly unliked it. I couldn't help laughing. It was Xie Shishu. He was used to liking all my social media updates but never left any comments, so I found his WeChat ID and sent him a message. On such a happy day, shouldn't you buy me a bouquet of flowers to celebrate? I saw the chat box continuously showing typing but didn't receive a reply for a long time. I could probably guess how torn he was. I smiled and put down my phone. Just then, Xiamian came out of the kitchen, looking a bit anxious, but when he saw me, he furrowed his brows and said apologetically, "Luo Luo, something has come up at the company. I might not be able to stay with you any longer. I have to go back and deal with it first." I showed my understanding considerately, so Xiamian left in a hurry. Not long after, my social media feed refreshed. The latest post was from Song Ruoro. "I have a fever, feeling so uncomfortable. But those who love you will come to your side no matter how far away they are." Red heart. The attached pictures were a big heart emoji and a censored screenshot of a shared location. Soon, someone asked her what was wrong in the comments. I sneered, took a screenshot without hesitation, and added the video of Song Ruoro and Xiamian's affair on my birthday. I was about to have someone send them all to Xue Minghui, who was on a business trip abroad, but I hesitated just before sending them. Just then, a new WeChat message popped up. "Should I send it to your home? But I seem to not know where you live." I could feel his caution and grievance even through the screen. 15. Xie Shishu arrived later than I expected. I thought he couldn't find the way, but I was stunned the moment I opened the door. He was holding a huge money tree, with his face hidden behind the leaves. He explained carefully, "You said before that you liked money trees better." I did say that. I said it casually when a boy in high school confessed his love to me with a bouquet of flowers, but who would be so silly as to give a girl a money tree? I was amused. "Didn't I ask you to bring flowers? Actually, money trees can also bloom." Xie Shishu's voice got softer and softer, sounding a bit guilty, "But I remember money trees rarely bloom." I laughed, teasing him on purpose. "I can't take care of such a big money tree." "I can take care of it for you," Xie Shishu replied instinctively. But then he froze as soon as the words came out. He quickly explained, "No, I mean, yeah, I know you didn't mean to use taking care of the money tree as an excuse to come to my house." I stepped aside to let him in, but Xie Shishu just stood at the door, not moving. "What's wrong?" Xiamian didn't say anything. His eyes slowly landed on a pair of men's slippers at the door. After a long while, he said haltingly, "Xiamian isn't suitable for you." I then realized that he must have mistaken these slippers as ones I prepared for Xiamian. In fact, I hated everything that Xiamian had touched. I had already found a new tenant for the apartment Xiamian had been to, but I didn't explain further. Instead, I tilted my head and asked him, "Then what's your identity to tell me something like this?" Xie Shishu opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. I waited patiently. Unexpectedly, after a long silence, Xie Shishu put down the money tree, rubbed his hands until they turned red, and then carefully tugged at my sleeve. The tall boy, over 1.8 meters, stood in front of me with his head lowered, exuding a sense of obedience. He said, "I can get plastic surgery. I'm sure I'll be more handsome than Xiamian after that, and I'm more obedient than him, so, can you stop liking him?" The last sentence was said very softly. It left me stunned and speechless. After a long while, I finally found my voice. "Xie Shishu, take off your mask." 16. I was prepared for the possibility that Xie Shishu might have grown less good-looking as he got older, but not only did he not, his features had become even more delicate. The only flaw, if there was one, was the scar that extended from under his left eye to the end of his eyebrow. That scar also appeared in my dream. It was from when Xie Shishu was slashed by a thug's knife while protecting me to escape. A little deeper, and his left eye would have been blinded. Seeing me staring at his left eye, Xie Shishu instinctively turned his head, revealing his perfectly delicate right half of the face. He said softly, "The scar can be removed." "Xie Shishu," I called him. "Who said you're ugly?" Xie Shishu was taken aback and replied obediently, "A lot of people." "Who started it?" "Xiamian," just as I expected. Xiamian had always hated Xie Shishu, but he couldn't get rid of him, because Xie Shishu's mother was a mentally ill person. She committed suicide after sending Xie Shishu to the Xie family. And this incident caused quite a stir at that time, so Xie Mian could only suppress Xie Shishu in various ways. He called Xie Shishu ugly, he called Xie Shishu a good-for-nothing, he said Xie Shishu was just like his mother, a lunatic. My chest felt stuffy, and anger burned inside me. But I remained calm on the surface. He said I'm so ugly that I'd scare you, so he told me not to show up in front of you, Xie Shishu added, carefully observing my expression. Xie Mian indeed wouldn't want Xie Shishu around because he needed to fabricate the story of saving my life, I thought expressionlessly, but Xie Shishu mistook my silence for disbelief. The light in his amber eyes dimmed instantly. He asked me sadly, "Can I put my mask back on now?" "Wait a minute," Xie Shishu nodded. He seemed used to being quiet and compliant. It was hard for me to connect the person in front of me with the Xie Shishu who would later be able to compete with Xie Mian, until I asked him to raise his head and then smiled and asked, "Have you ever tried drawing on your face?" Xie Shishu's eyes widened suddenly, then I watched as the redness in his eyes gradually spread, so I glanced at his hands resting on his knees and said deliberately, "Remember not to let your hands show in the videos next time." Xie Shishu stiffened. "Don't move, okay," Xie Shishu replied, sounding wronged. I drew a wisteria on the scar under Xie Shishu's eye. He hadn't looked in the mirror for a long time. This time, under my insistence, he looked at himself carefully in the mirror. After a while, he looked up at me. "I'm more handsome than Xie Mian." His tone was confident. With a hint of excitement, I nodded. "You've always been more handsome than Xie Mian." The redness that had just faded away reappeared on Xie Shishu's face. He quickly turned his head and changed the subject. "Do you still need those videos?" "I have other ones." I asked Xie Shishu if he wanted to cooperate. I wanted Xie Mian and Song Ruoruo to be disgraced, but the cooperation between the Shin family and the Xie family couldn't be affected. From the beginning to the end, what I wanted was not just revenge. Xie Shishu understood and was very quick-witted. "That's enough," I smiled. The videos I had were already enough to make Xue Minghui, that madman, turn against Xie Mian. 17. I found someone to teach Xie Shishu. He was much smarter than I expected. Most of the time, he could understand things with just a little explanation. Even so, I caught him studying all night several times. When caught, he would admit his mistake obediently but never change his ways. I asked Xie Shishu why he was pushing himself so hard. Xie Shishu stared at me for a long time, then stammered and changed the subject. He was hiding something from me. This made me a bit unhappy, but the feeling didn't last long. After all, this time, I only believed in myself. Xie Mian was so entangled with Song Ruoruo that he had no time to arrange a meeting between the two families. Song Ruoruo was extremely jealous and possessive. Now, because of the existence of Xue Minghui, a ticking time bomb, she was eager to complete her mission as soon as possible, and every time I met with Xie Mian, I would post on social media to show off. I knew Song Ruoruo was watching, and every time she saw it, she would find ways to call Xie Mian back to her side. This atmosphere of infidelity had Xie Mian hooked, especially when my unreasonableness made Song Ruoruo seem even more gentle and considerate. With my push, Xie Mian and Song Ruoruo's relationship developed rapidly. Xie Mian wanted it all, but in this world, there's no such thing as having everything your way. The project cooperation finally ended with my mother getting an additional 10% of the profit. I heard that after returning home, Xie Mian's father scolded him severely, thinking that he had failed to do a good job in dealing with our side. Xie Mian threw a huge tantrum that day. Although he was nominally the heir of the Xie family, he was controlled by his father in every way and had long harbored resentment. In the last life, under the pretext of revenge, Xie Mian and Xue Minghui seized my family's business. After that, he quickly accumulated enough capital to start his own business. I knew about his ambition, so I softened my attitude for once, comforted Xie Mian, and pretended to casually mention my intention to start a business. Sure enough, Xie Mian's eyes lit up. He coaxed me to start a business with him, saying that he didn't want to rely on his family. Luo Luo. "You know my father has always been very controlling." Xie Mian frowned. "If he finds out about my plans, he'll do everything to stop me, but I really want to prove myself. Luo Luo, you'll help me, right?" He looked at me expectantly, so I smiled. "Of course, after all, you're my boyfriend." It was worth it to use a little money to make Xie Mian fall into eternal ruin. Xie Mian was overjoyed and wanted to stay with me that night, but I refused him with an excuse. Xie Mian wasn't angry. He left after telling me to rest well. I knew he was going to see Song Ruoruo. Xiamian had been trained as the heir since childhood and was strictly disciplined. Song Ruoro had opened the door to a new world for him. According to the information sent by the private detective, the two of them had recently become obsessed with various role-playing games. Xiamian used this way to vent his emotions and was deeply addicted. This was completely different from the last life. In the last life, Xiamian didn't have a relationship with Song Ruoro. And without the provocation from Xue Minghui, he focused all his efforts on self-improvement. But now, with his ally turned enemy and his abilities not matching his ambitions, I was eagerly looking forward to the day when everything would come to a head. After all, the Xie family didn't have only Xiamian as a son. 18. Xue Minghui returned to the country. The first thing he did after coming back was to find me. He was straightforward. "Do you know what your boyfriend and my girlfriend have been up to?" Xue Minghui didn't suspect me. Xie Shishu was skilled, and Xue Minghui couldn't trace the sender of the emails. When I saw those videos, I was so angry that I trembled all over and wanted to confront Xiamian immediately, but Xue Minghui stopped me. He hypocritically suggested that we join forces. "What do you want to do? Just wait," Xue Minghui sneered viciously. "I won't let them off easily." After a long silence, I said fiercely with red eyes, "I heard Xiamian wants that piece of land in the west of the city owned by the Xue family. The Shin family can cover the Xue family's losses and offer a higher price." That piece of land was a test given to Xiamian by his father, although the contract hadn't been signed yet. Xiamian was determined to get it and had already started investing in construction. Now, if the Xue family went back on their word, his losses would be huge. Xue Minghui's eyes lit up immediately. "Deal." He thought I was so angry that I was foolish enough to take on that mess, but he didn't know that soon, the land would be taken over by the government, bringing immeasurable benefits. I watched Xue Minghui's departing back, put away the anger on my face, and smiled instead. Xue Minghui underestimated how crazy Xiamian could be. When two rabid dogs fight, I hope Song Ruoro can still bear it. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Xie Shishu. "I've finished today's study tasks. Can I come to your place to check on the money tree?" After a while, he tentatively sent a cat peeking out emoji, thinking of the money tree at home, which was now associated with the hope of blooming. I thought Xie Shishu had found a good excuse, but I didn't really mind. As soon as I gave my consent, Xie Shishu replied almost instantly, "I'll be there right away. What would you like to eat today? I can buy groceries on the way." Xie Shishu was much better at cooking than Xiamian, and his dishes suited my taste more. But this wasn't something he should be doing. I lowered my eyes, rubbing my phone, and refused him. "I've already eaten. I happen to have something to discuss with you tonight and check your recent study progress by the way, this time." Xie Shishu took a while to reply, "Okay." Then came a cat-looking, dejected emoji. I didn't reply further. While Xiamian and Song Ruoro were immersed in their various dramatic scenarios, I followed my mother's lead, intensified my study of company operations, attended various business meetings, and expanded my network. I once thought that Ms. Shin could always protect me, until in the last life, she was framed for financial crimes by Xiamian and imprisoned. I was powerless to support the Shin family, and in the end, all her years of hard work were swallowed up by Xiamian and Xue Minghui. My mother, who loved beauty so much, tried every means to save me until the day she died, but I could do nothing. But this time, everything was different. 19. Xue Minghui delivered his gift at the birthday celebration of the Xie family's patriarch. The Xie family had originally planned to announce the engagement between the Xie and Shin families that day. Song Ruoro didn't show up, but no one paid much attention, until Xiamian's phone suddenly rang. When he saw the caller ID, his face froze. He instinctively looked up and then tried to hang up the phone in a hurry, but I stopped him. "Is it Ruoro?" I asked, pretending to be concerned. "She seems to be in a hurry. You'd better answer it. What if something's wrong? What could happen to her? She's just a troublemaker," Xiamian said casually, not noticing the affection in his tone at all. But the people present were all shrewd. Xiamian's father's expression changed, but he didn't say anything. I smiled, and when Xiamian was about to hang up, I snatched the phone from him and answered the call. "You should answer it. What if there's really an emergency? Amian, save me." Before she could finish, Song Ruoro's scream with a sobbing voice rang out, "Xue Minghui is trying to rape me." As soon as these words came out, Xiamian's face changed drastically. He instinctively wanted to run out, but was stopped by his father. "Dad," Xiamian's voice was filled with unhidden urgency, "Ruoro is in danger." Xiamian's father forced a smile at my mother and me, then scolded in a low voice, what danger could she be in? She and Xiao Shui are boyfriend and girlfriend. They're not, Xiamian instinctively retorted, but suddenly stopped when he noticed me, then his eyes lit up, Luo Luo. You agree with me going, right? I had caught Xiamian several times when Song Ruoro used various excuses to get him to go and accompany her. At first, Xiamian would nervously explain to me, but after I magnanimously showed my understanding several times, he became more and more blatant. He even thought it was only natural. I suppressed the smile in my eyes, frowned, and shook my head, then I kindly advised him, Uncle Xie is right. Shui Minghui and she are in a relationship, how could he do something to hurt her? Maybe she's saying this on purpose. I bit my lip and didn't continue, but the meaning was clear. Xiamian's face instantly darkened, he looked at me with disappointment in his eyes, and hurtful words blurted out without thinking, Shen Luo, I never thought you'd become so vicious, Xiamian. Xiamian's father slapped him, stopping him angrily. The sudden pain brought Xiamian back to his senses, but the words had already been said. He gave me a complex look, turned around, and was about to leave, only to be stopped by his father's men. Let him go. When the two sides were at a stalemate, the voice of the old master of the Xie family sounded. He was helped out by Xie Shishu, and I exchanged a quick glance and then quickly looked away. The old master of the Xie family scanned Xiamian with eagle-like eyes. But Xiamian, you should know what the consequences will be if you step out of this door today. You're not the only son in the Xie family. These words carried a warning. But Xiamian didn't care. He pushed past the security guards without looking back and ran out. 20. The old master of the Xie family was extremely angry, but the best was yet to come. In the middle of the banquet, the screen in the hall suddenly started playing a live video. The environment in the video was dim, but there were ambiguous gasps and offensive dialogues. Slut, are you so happy being my dog? Where did Shui Minghui touch you? Here, or here? I didn't let him touch me, brother. Won't Shen Luo mind if you come here? After all, you're going to announce your engagement later. Don't mention her. That woman won't even let me kiss her. I don't know what she's pretending to be so high and mighty about. If it weren't for her surname being Shen, I wouldn't even bother with that vicious woman. Everyone heard it clearly. Xie Shishu's face turned ice, cold almost instantly. His gaze on the video was as if he wished he could rush over and kill Xiamian. But I stopped him silently. The old master of the Xie family had a stroke on the spot. The scene was in chaos. In the end, Xie Shishu called the family doctor, made a decisive decision to turn off the video, block the news, and deal with the media reporters at the banquet in a timely manner. He also had people forcefully bring Xiamian and Song Ruoro back. But this video wasn't only played at the banquet, it spread across the entire internet. Shui Minghui had gone all out. It was considered a response to the hints I gave when sending those videos. I lowered my head and took a sip of wine without saying a word. My mother demanded an explanation from the Xie family with a cold face. Helpless, Xiamian's father could only keep apologizing. He immediately handed over 3 projects to the Shen family and agreed to many conditions. Barely calming my mother down, the anger on my mother's face hadn't completely disappeared, but she beamed as soon as she got in the car. How did you know Xiamian would definitely go to that woman? She guessed that I had secretly orchestrated all these things. I let out an ah and chuckled. Because Song Ruoro is pregnant. 21. I had someone leak the news of Song Ruoro's pregnancy to Xiamian. She originally wanted to keep it from Xiamian and have an abortion. Because Song Ruoro was worried that the existence of the child would affect her leaving, but Xiamian found out, and he was extremely eager for the child, so Song Ruoro had to put aside those thoughts. But everything was just beginning. With such a huge scandal, the Xie family became the butt of many people's jokes. The old master of the Xie family was hospitalized and fell into a coma. When Xiamian's father was overwhelmed with work, he received the bad news that the Shui family had terminated all cooperation with the Xie family, because Xiamian had disabled Shui Minghui. It wasn't difficult to find out what Shui Minghui had done, or perhaps he deliberately wanted Xiamian to know it was his revenge. Of course, Shui Minghui didn't spare Song Ruoro either. He found people to humiliate her when she was alone, almost causing her to have a miscarriage. But Shui Minghui didn't expect Xiamian to go so crazy and disable him in public. The spectacle of dogs biting each other was a delight to watch. Because of this, Xiamian's father became cautious and checked all the project documents handled by Xiamian. Sure enough, He found obvious loopholes in several important contracts. When signing those contracts, Xiamian hadn't been present in person because he was fooling around with Song Ruoruo. Moreover, Xiamian had secretly contacted many contacts to join his newly established company. Xiamian's father was furious. He gave Xiamian a choice, but relying on his ability to start a business independently, Xiamian refused to admit his mistakes. He even moved out of the Xia family with Song Ruoruo. He was certain that his father would bow his head. After all, he had been the heir of the Xia family for more than 20 years. Xiamian had never taken Xia Shishu seriously, but this time, his father was completely disappointed in Xiamian. It was at this moment that he remembered he had another son. And that son was more talented than Xiamian. He could understand things quickly, and he was even more obedient than Xiamian. It was just that he had been suppressed by his eldest son in the past few years and hadn't been able to rise to the top. In addition, after the old master of the Xia family woke up, he also intended to let Xia Shishu take over. So when Xiamian wasn't aware, the Xia family had already undergone a change. At that time, Xiamian was still indulging in various intimate games with Song Ruoruo. While waiting for his father to bow his head, the Xia family had announced the new heir. I originally thought that according to Xiamian's character, he would make a scene, but he didn't. Instead, he suddenly became diligent in his work and even hired several newly graduated and unknown college students. Everyone was laughing at Xiamian for giving up on himself, but when I saw those people, I was stunned. They were all old acquaintances of the team Xiamian had newly established after annexing the Shen family in the previous life. 22. As expected, Xiamian had also been reborn. He originally wanted to rely on his memories of the previous life to turn the tide, but he didn't expect that I had preempted him in those promising projects and investments. 1 or 2 cases could be considered coincidences, but after so many times, even Xiamian couldn't convince himself. Shenluo, you've been reborn too. Right, Xiamian came to question me, his eyes bloodshot. I just looked at him quietly for a while and suddenly smiled. So you're back too, that's great. I said the last 2 words very softly, but Xiamian could hear them. He misunderstood that I still had feelings for him and that everything I had done was just to make him bow his head to me. So after a moment of hesitation, Xiamian softened his attitude. We did have some misunderstandings in the previous life. And I just wanted to scare you at that time. I didn't really want to hurt you. Fortunately, nothing has happened yet, and there's still time, Xiamian said, then changed to an affectionate tone. Actually, Luo, I still love you. Song Ruoruo was just a passing fancy to me. You're the one who can truly become the mistress of the Xia family. As long as you help me through this difficult time, I promise I won't hold your previous actions against you. I was amused by Xiamian's brazen words. Xiamian, I looked at him sideways, my eyes full of mockery. You don't think I said that because I like a piece of trash like you, do you? Xiamian's face changed. He tried to rush towards me, but was held back by the bodyguards beside me. What I meant was, now that you're back, I can take my revenge on you with more peace of mind. I walked up to Xiamian and smiled, dropping another bombshell. By the way, Xiamian, do you know why Song Ruoruo has been clinging to you? What? Because you're just a tool for her to complete her mission, I said each word slowly, watching Xiamian's face turn pale instantly. 23. Xiamian wasn't without suspicion, but he stubbornly refused to admit it in front of me, so I took out the records of Song Ruoruo's early appointment for an abortion at the hospital. Then I asked him, guess, are there any more problems in your company? Xiamian shivered when he met my eyes. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by a hurried ringtone. As Xiamian answered the phone, his face grew uglier and uglier. I didn't need to guess what the other person was saying. It was nothing more than financial fraud, and his confidants had embezzled public funds and run away. When Xiamian was reborn, he faced a pile of troubles and didn't even think to investigate the people in his company. Shenluo, you bitch. He slammed his phone down and tried to break free from the bodyguards to attack me, but I kicked him several times. Xiamian, you'd better stay alive. I looked down at him and smiled. It's not over yet. 24. Xiamian gradually started leaving early and coming back late. To pay off his debts, he and Song Ruoruo moved from a high-end apartment to a rental house. This was a huge blow to Song Ruoruo, who was used to a luxurious life, especially since Xiamian's love value for her no longer increased. Song Ruoruo began to do everything she could to please Xiamian, but although Xiamian vented his emotions, the love value didn't budge at all. At this time, Xue Minghui found Song Ruoro again and said that as long as she aborted the child and returned to him, he could forget about everything that had happened before. Song Ruoro wavered, especially after Xie Mian scolded her the previous day for spending hundreds of thousands on a necklace, but by then, Song Ruoro's belly was already quite big. So she ruthlessly devised a plan to cause a miscarriage, but she didn't expect that everything would be photographed by the private detective I hired and sent to Xie Mian. You bitch. Song Ruoro, who had been crying pitifully in the hospital, originally wanted to win Xie Mian's sympathy, but instead, she was met with his punches and kicks. He grabbed her hair fiercely and smiled menacingly. You want to go back? I'll make sure you can never go back. You'll stay here with me forever. Upon hearing these words, Song Ruoro stopped crying instantly and looked at Xie Mian in disbelief. It was then that I heard that cold mechanical voice ring out, mission failed. In the previous life, Xie Mian's love value for Song Ruoro had always been just a little short. Song Ruoro thought it was all because of me, so she planned a death that would make Xie Mian fall in love with her completely and also allow her to take revenge on me. 25. In the end, Xie Mian still bowed his head. He wanted to go back and beg his father for forgiveness, asking the Xie family to help him pay off his debts, but he was stopped by Xie Shishu. Xie Mian's father was originally a bit soft-hearted, until Xie Shishu showed him some evidence of the trick Xie Mian had played on him to prevent other illegitimate children from competing for the family business. I had learned about these things by chance in the previous life, so I had prepared the evidence early in this life. Xie Mian's father was shocked and angry, and he immediately had Xie Mian driven out. This also let Xue Minghui know that the Xie family had truly given up on Xie Mian. He began to take unbridled revenge on Xie Mian. The next time I saw Xie Mian was in the company's underground parking lot. With a knife in his hand, he rushed towards me, his eyes blood red. Bitch, die. But he was stopped. It was Xie Shishu, who I hadn't seen for a long time due to his busy schedule. It was the first time I saw such a sinister side of Xie Shishu. He punched Xie Mian again and again, as if he wanted to beat him to death. If I hadn't stopped him, Xie Mian would most likely have been killed by him. Ha ha ha. Xie Shishu, I knew it was you, a bitch and a psycho, a perfect match. Xie Mian spat out the teeth that had been knocked out, pointed at us with his swollen eyes, and laughed. When Xie Shishu heard the word psycho, his body stiffened. He turned his back to me and didn't dare to turn around. In fact, Xie Shishu was very different from the person he was a few months ago, but some of his inferiority complex was still ingrained, especially different from the person he was a few months ago, but some of his inferiority complex was still ingrained, especially in front of me. I let out a sigh, patted Xie Shishu on the shoulder, and called the police. Until the police arrived, Xie Shishu didn't say a word. He just silently stood in front of me, in a protective stance. During the interrogation, I learned that Song Ruoro was dead. She had been stabbed to death by Xie Mian. After Xue Minghui disabled Xie Mian's leg and his manhood, Xie Mian took out all his anger on Song Ruoro. Later, when he had no money to pay off his debts, he forced Song Ruoro into prostitution. When Song Ruoro couldn't take it anymore and tried to escape, she was caught by the drunk Xie Mian, tortured almost to death, and then stabbed to death. After killing someone, Xie Mian went completely crazy. He thought that since he had already killed someone, it didn't matter if he killed one more, so he lay in wait for several days, waiting for a chance to attack me when I was alone, but he didn't expect to run into Xie Shishu. But I knew this wasn't a coincidence. Before leaving, I met Xie Mian one last time. As soon as Xie Mian saw me, he struggled wildly, cursing at me foully. He only quieted down after being kicked a few times by the police. Don't be so excited. I smiled at him softly. Don't worry. Your good brother will come to keep you company soon. The Xue family's business was already on the decline, and the disabled Xue Minghui was in low spirits, his behavior becoming increasingly unpredictable. He had many lives on his hands. After saying this, I turned and left without waiting for Xie Mian's reaction. I had already instructed people to take good care of Xie Mian in prison. The things he did in the last life would now be repeated on him bit by bit. The same applied to Xue Minghui. After leaving the police station, I let out a long sigh. Then I turned to Xie Shishu, who had been silent all this time, and asked, "How long have you been following me?" Xie Shishu stiffened. He suddenly lowered his head, looking helpless as if he had done something wrong. "I'm not blaming you," I sighed. Knowing his personality, I softened my voice. "Come to think of it, I should thank you for protecting me, but Xie Shishu still didn't say a word. Then I realized something was wrong. I forced Xie Shishu to raise his head. That's when I noticed he had gritted his teeth tightly, his eyes red. I was taken aback. Xie Shishu, surely he wasn't that scared. Xie Shishu bit his teeth hard, trying not to let the tears fall, but there were too many tears in his eyes. With a slight blink, a big tear rolled down. Speak. I was getting anxious, and my tone became harsher. Finally, Xie Shishu spoke with great difficulty, his voice choking with sobs. I am not a psycho. I didn't expect that to be the reason, Xie Shishu. He was crying so pitifully that it stirred up the little kindness I had, so I cupped his face in my hands. Look at me. Xie Shishu opened his eyes wide, trying his best to focus on me. You're not a psycho, you're a hero. I smiled at him. Look, you saved me once when we were kids, and now you've saved me again. Xie Shishu, you're clearly a hero, and you're so smart. My mom has praised you many times and even said she wished you were her child. I rarely had the patience to compliment people, but this time, in an attempt to soothe Xie Shishu, I racked my brain and said a lot of things. Even when I felt I was just rambling, Xie Shishu suddenly smiled. His eyes sparkled brightly, but the light faded quickly. He opened his mouth, hesitant. Finally, he mustered up the courage to speak. I've been having this recurring dream. I dreamt that you were horribly tortured by Xian Mian. He even found people to humiliate you. I wanted to save you. But every time, I was just a little too late. Xie Shishu's voice grew softer and softer. Seeing my stunned expression, he quickly explained, I'm really not crazy. I went to see a doctor, really. He even tried to take out the medical certificate to show me, but I stopped him. Xie Shishu, I sighed, for I didn't know how many times that night. Are you stupid? I remembered how he had hesitated when I asked him why he was working so hard. He was afraid something would happen to me, so he wanted to grow stronger as soon as possible. But he was also afraid that if he told me, I would think he was crazy. Xie Shishu pursed his lips and looked downcast again, like a big, sad dog. Yet he was so imposing when giving media interviews. I held back my laughter. Congratulations. I heard you now hold 40% of the Xie family's shares. I couldn't help but marvel at how incredibly fast Xie Shishu had grown, but Xie Shishu quickly glanced up at me and then lowered his head again. He said very softly, it's 0.27. What? I thought I had misheard, so Xie Shishu patiently repeated, I transferred them all to your name. This time, it was my turn to be silent. The old man still holds 30%, and he won't give them to me yet, Xie Shishu said, sounding a bit apologetic. It took a while before I found my voice. It was hoarse yet earnest. I never asked you to give me the Xie family business, Xie Shishu. When I first approached you, it was just to get revenge on Xian Mian. I do want to take over the Xie family, but you didn't have to go this far. Although later I hoped Xie Shishu could have the ability to protect himself, since he had saved me. I intended to give him the entire Xie family as a token of gratitude. No one would turn down money and status, at least. That's what I always thought, but Xie Shishu seemed to be an exception. I know, he smiled at me shyly. Aunt Shin said, you can trust a man when pigs can fly. My mom did say that all the time. She also often said that men were just for fun, and if one didn't work out, I should move on to the next. But I'm sure she never said that in front of Xie Shishu, otherwise, he'd be so heartbroken. I nodded and heard him continue. I think Aunt Shin is right. I also think I'm not very reliable. Aunt Shin also said that you love money. If I want to make you happy, I should just give you money. Xie Shishu paused and then asked me cautiously, did I do the right thing? After a long silence, I nodded and said, at least it's better than that money tree. God knew how much effort I had put into taking care of that money tree. Xie Shishu blushed deeply. Why are you so good to me? I looked up at Xie Shishu and asked. Xie Shishu blurted out without thinking. Because only you would bring me food, drive away those who bullied me, and play with me. Those were all things that happened before the kidnapping. I interrupted him, but I don't remember any of that. Xie Shishu frowned in confusion. But even after you lost your memory, you still warned those people not to bully me. You also told me that I had to become strong to avoid being bullied. He paused, his eyes shining brightly. Everything you said was right. I vaguely remembered saying those things, but back then, it was just out of momentary pity, yet Xie Shishu had remembered them all, both in this life and the last. My eyes suddenly felt a bit sore. I took a deep breath and smiled. Xie Shishu, it's hard for me to trust others, and it's even harder for me to rely on a man. For me, love is just an illusion. Only money and power are real and tangible in my hands. I will climb to a high position on my own in the future. What I want is far more than what's in front of me now, so I will demand absolute loyalty, but I can't offer the same in return because I'm a very selfish person. I stared at Xie Shishu intently, not missing the slightest change in his expression. So, do you understand what I mean? But Xie Shishu was really clueless. He didn't even know how to confess his feelings. He just thought for a moment, then he asked me cautiously, "Can I still go to your house often to take care of that money tree?" "Sure, the kind where only I can take care of it," he emphasized. I rolled my eyes in exasperation. "Fine, then that's good." Xie Shishu suddenly smiled contentedly. "It doesn't matter, I don't need much." He had given me the power to decide everything. From the moment he transferred the shares to my name, idiot, Xie Shishu tried to defend himself, but I suddenly kissed him. His eyes widened in surprise, and his whole body went stiff. Then he turned as red as a tomato. I pulled away after a brief kiss. "Xie Shishu." He lowered his head and was silent for a while. Just when I thought he was too shy, Xie Shishu suddenly looked up at me with bright eyes and gently tugged at the corner of my clothes. "Can I have another kiss?" "Me, close your eyes." He had definitely been influenced by my mom. 28. Xie Mian didn't have an easy time in prison. He was good looking. And there were many people with special preferences in prison. Before long, Xie Mian was tortured so badly that he was almost paralyzed and had to be sent to the hospital. He tried to escape but was caught. He also tried to feign madness to avoid going back, but nothing worked. Not long after, the Shui family went bankrupt. Shui Minghui was also imprisoned. I specifically arranged for him to be in the same place as Xie Mian. I heard that when the two enemies first saw each other, they were filled with hatred, but soon they became companions in misfortune. I knew Xie Shishu had a hand in this, but he was always so well behaved in front of me that even my mom couldn't help but tell me not to bully him too much. After all, even before we got married, all his wealth was already in my hands. "Do I bully you?" I grabbed Xie Shishu's tie and forced him to lower his head. There was a light purple wisteria painted on his beautiful eyebrows and eyes, which I had drawn on a whim last night. Later, I found out that the first time I drew on him, he cherished it so much that he didn't dare to touch it. He was even sad for a while when the paint faded. Xie Shishu obediently bent down following my pull and rubbed against me. "No, Mom, look, I don't bully him." I immediately turned to protest to my mom. "Get out of here." My mom rolled her eyes and waved us away in disgust. "If you want to show your affection, do it outside. Don't make me, an old woman, have to hit my own daughter." So I happily pulled Xie Shishu outside. When we reached the swing under the wisteria trellis, I suddenly remembered that the first time I brought Xie Shishu home, I had let him sit on the swing and pushed him. At that time, I thought Xie Shishu was a girl, a very beautiful girl. I had always wanted a younger sister. "Xie Shishu," I pointed at the swing, "sit on it." Xie Shishu didn't ask why. He only grabbed the ropes in a panic when I playfully pushed him. He instinctively turned his head to look at me but froze when he felt a kiss land on his cheek. He subconsciously looked towards the house, worried that my mom might see. I held back my laughter. "Xie Shishu, let's cooperate one more time." Xie Shishu's eyelashes trembled, and he said slowly, "But I don't have any money left." It seemed that he was always broke in front of me. When we were kids, I tricked away all his money. Now, he had voluntarily given all his money to me. "It doesn't matter." She paused for a moment, then took out a box of medicine from her pocket and carefully handed it to Xie Mian, saying, "Brother, your stomach is not good. I prepared some medicine for you in advance." I took out a box of medicine from my pocket and handed it to him carefully. Xie Shishu was stunned for a long time this time. "Of course, if you don't, okay." He interrupted me eagerly but didn't dare to look at me. He repeated "okay" several times in a low voice. I couldn't help but laugh. "Don't cry." So Xie Shishu managed to hold back the urge to raise his hand and stubbornly said, "I'm not crying." I sighed. "But now I suddenly want to see you cry." Xie Shishu turned his head in surprise, his eyes still red. I kissed him, then I said, "If my mom